Hello, this is a prepaid collect call from an inmate at the county jail. This call is subject to recording and monitoring. To accept charges, press 1. To refuse charges, press 2.
Well, hello there, Mr. Bryan. No, I did not hear that. Well, we do the best we can to prevent people from getting out of prison and then going back again, but sometimes people slip right through the crack. I guess life is a lot more difficult than they anticipated. Yeah, I know there's a lot of prejudice against ex-cons. Tough to get housing and jobs and community support. But, that's something they should work with in the prison. They should give them skills on job interviews and writing resumes, where to apply. Maybe even give them a list of people that hire folks that are ex-cons, and at least give them a second chance. Because I know when I go out helping folks, there's a lot of folks out there that will support ex-cons, and some of them have even been there. But it's just a shame that this had to happen, and I hope this is it. That he won't go back. Yeah, that is true. I've been looking into that as well. There are people that go to prison and they just come out worse, and it's not a secret. The public knows that. It's just for some reason they're just planning to ignore it, and I don't know why. It's scary to think that prisons are making people worse and teaching them things to continue their criminal activity after release. And I usually, when people ask me to help them bail somebody out, I'll look at it and think, what kind of efforts does this person make to stay out of incarceration? Because why should I go and bail the person out when they're just going to go back in? Yeah, that is true. The families are definitely affected by this stuff. And probably if we can get them to be a little more caring, maybe some community work, or if they could sit in on some counseling or a session and just discuss ways to help somebody, maybe create a situation, or maybe relay a real life situation where a person is struggling, and ask that person, what advice would you give, or what would you do in a situation like this? Or have you anything that's happened in your past that you want to share? And I'm sure there are some folks out there who will relate to that and respond to it in a positive way. But people, that's the one thing I love about people, is they're not predictable. And so it's going to be to the point where you really don't know until you actually start work with the person. And I think we need to put that out there more often. I know after they get out, I do the best I can to work individually. And I know when people are in school,
You have 60 seconds remaining.
they working one-on-one with the teacher helps the person. And I don't know why that's not catching on. Maybe we just have to push harder and get the word out. But these should be correctional institutions and not prisons. We shouldn't be packing them up and locking them up for
You have 30 seconds remaining.
extended period of time. Yeah, I know. It's an age-old problem. And it doesn't seem like there's any light at the end of the tunnel. But that doesn't mean we need to give up. Eventually, somebody somewhere, maybe one of the new generation, is going to hit on something. It's like that big product that was hidden for so long, and then somebody discovers it and makes millions. Well, thanks for the call. And
Thank you for using inmate call. Goodbye.
hello. My name is Joel Wilborn, and this is AQS Inmate Call. And in this episode, I want to talk about the effect that incarceration has on recidivism. Now, one of the things that we want from a correctional center is the people to come out and live a productive life. And since all people are different, we want to make sure that we have individual studies on these people's behaviors and their goals, their aspirations, their skills. There's a lot of things that people can contribute to society, to their family, to the penal system, educational system, and we're just overlooking that. We have people that are just, it's almost like finding a diamond, and the diamond's valuable, but it's in bad shape. So you take it to an expert who cleans it up and forms it into something that's marketable and can have great value. And when I talk to folks that are incarcerated, that's the way I see them. And because they're asking, why are you helping us? What's going on? And it's more like I see the potential in you. We just need to figure out what it is. And the most successful ones are the ones who determine that they have a worth, that they have a skill, that they have something that can be used. Now, a good example that I want to use is the notorious criminals Bonnie and Clyde. Now, hopefully you're familiar with that duo. They were pretty young when they met, and pretty young when they were causing their crime spree. But what had happened was, I would say, the penal system got in the way. Because Clyde, he had pretty much a regular childhood. Can't really say normal, because what's the definition of normal? Varies for different people, and some people that consider something normal, it really isn't. And if he did have a normal upbringing, he wouldn't have ended up committing all these crimes. At least that's my take on it. But on the surface, it looked like he was heading in the right direction. And he was the fifth of 7 children, born to a poor but close-knit farming family. Family farm failed due to drought, and they moved to Dallas, Texas. And he went to school until he was 16. He had ambitions of becoming a musician, learning to play both the guitar and the saxophone. But under the influence of his older brother, Buck, he soon turned to a life of crime. Now, that there's all kinds of little details that can go in with that. But, you look at the typical thing. You're working, you're trying to make a good, honest living, and then things don't work out. So what's the natural thing? It's like, the easy way to get a buck is crime. And he got into crime. And he met Bonnie in January 1930. And she was a waitress, Bonnie Parker. And they met through a mutual friend. Now, she was doing her best to make an honest living as well. But at this time, he was committing crimes. And I can understand Bonnie, because I'm attracted to the bad girl. Not only looks, demeanor, but it's just that thought that these people think outside the box. They don't take their values from the same place that I do. So I like to learn from that. It's like the old thing, opposites attract. What I lack, they have in strength, and what they lack, I have in strength. And I think we make a good couple, even though every time I get into a relationship with somebody who is incarcerated or been incarcerated, it ends miserably. But I like that, the feeling. I like that. It's almost like the forbidden, something I shouldn't go for. And it's just an attraction, I think, that highly overrides any logic I might have on it or aspirations for a long-term relationship. And it works for me. That's the way I think. That's why it's easier for me to relate to what Bonnie was looking for. I'm sure deep down inside, when she talks to her family, she knows, this is not going to work out. There's things that override that. And it's called love. Love can supersede anything. It's a very powerful force. And I'd rather be in love than have all this book smart stuff going on. Go out and meet almost like you take you go in and you do a computer survey and they find out the perfect match for you and you find that person. And on paper, yeah, it looks good. But in real life, are you happy? And Bonnie met this little bad guy, and but then shortly after that, he was arrested and convicted on various counts of auto theft. So he's sitting in prison. He's thinking about Bonnie. So this is giving him encouragement, something to help him get by. And when you're in love and you're sitting locked away, you want to get out. You want to meet this person again and continue where you left off. And maybe it was calming him down a little bit, but we don't know what was going through his mind, and but we do know the effect. And had somebody work with him, maybe we could have figured out some way to prevent it. We don't know. But Bonnie helped him escape. She smuggled a gun into the prison. He and some cellmates got out. But a week later, they were captured. So that's good for the law enforcement people. But here's where it went south. He was sentenced to 14 years of hard labor, eventually being transferred to Etham State Farm, where he was repeatedly sexually assaulted by another inmate. How's that going to make him feel? Is that the way a prison is supposed to be? That's occurring now. And a lot of folks are too afraid to say anything because of the stigma or the embarrassment, or they don't want to lose their good time. But it's there. And you can hear it if you just look for it. Clyde would write to Bonnie, and Bonnie would write to Clyde, and Bonnie was aspiring to be a poet. She was really talented, but she got bit by this love bug. But I think had people seen what was going on and realized what he considered important, maybe they should have just pushed to help these guys. But their correspondence definitely helped their mental state. And it's bad enough he was sexually assaulted, but to cut off his correspondence, what effect would that have had? But he wanted to get out, so he had his big toe and part of another toe cut off in a quote accident, and that caused him to have a permanent limp, and he was forced to drive in his socks, which is how they found him after he was ambushed. And but while he was doing all this to try to get out, thinking, I'm handicapped, I can't work, his mother convinced the judge to grant him parole. So he gets out of prison, and he and Bonnie are trying to do something. See, that combination that they had, all that work he did to try to get out, his mother showing him love, Bonnie working with him, it had some kind of effect because he got out and he tried to go straight. And then here's another issue. So while he's out here working at this Dallas glass company, police harassment caused him to lose his job. I'm sure if the cops said, hey, what are you up to, Clyde? You trying to steal something? How can they trust you? I don't know what they said, but I'm sure they would come along and probably prod him. And he's trying to work. And, of course, employers are thinking, we don't need this attention if he's really this bad guy. So he's lost his job. And so then he gets a gang, and he winds up killing a police officer and store owner during his group's crime spree. And he nearly 2 years, like about roughly 21 months, they went on this crime spree. And there's a lot of reasons we don't want people to go back to prison, and mainly it's because we want them to live a crime-free life, pay taxes, and to do the happily ever after bit. But with Clyde, he didn't want to go back to prison because he was sexually assaulted, and he didn't feel very safe, comfortable, like he was probably didn't, and he certainly didn't want to be away from Bonnie, which is not bad. But in his particular case, it really hurt. And so this guy, he gets to that point where he just doesn't care. And Bonnie knows that he doesn't want to go back to prison. I'm sure they talked about it. He probably even confided in her what happened. And she supported him 100%. I mean, if she's willing to smuggle a gun in and get him out of prison, she's not going to pull away from him. And that's where I can definitely relate to this, because you get this person you want to support. I'm not going to be corrupted and go to the crime side, and I'm certainly not going to uncorrupt the person that I fall in love with. The last thing I think is I'm going to change this person, and that's one of the reasons I think my relationships fail because they continue to be that way. They're not willing to make some sacrifices to make the relationship work. Maybe I'm saying don't do drugs, but they want to keep doing drugs. And that's a few things. They get so addicted to the drugs, they're willing to go the path of the drugs and those who provide it for them than somebody who's a square. Bonnie, she knows that Clyde wasn't going to change his ways, and he certainly didn't want to go back to prison. And so I know she knew somewhere along the line something was going to happen. Either she was going to be put in prison or they would die. And the way Clyde was thinking, he'd rather die than go to prison. And so when they got into shootouts, it was bad. And the police officers were a little nervous about that. And of course, when they're making their planning, it's like, we cannot give this guy an opportunity. So when they ambushed the car, they shot the driver's side. And they hit Clyde right away, so he didn't suffer. But Bonnie was just screaming because they were being ambushed and bullets were flying through the car. And so to get to her, they shot through the driver's side, shot through Clyde to hit her. And eventually she passed away. And that's the end of that story. People died. Property was stolen. A life that could have been productive because of the DOC and law enforcement not doing what they were paid to do. Why haven't we learned from that? Why is it that here it is, 2025, and we are still treating incarcerated people as if they're meaningless and they deserve to be in there for the rest of their life no matter what they did? Why do we still do that? Why do we look at this story, see where we could have fixed it, but don't even try to apply it? In my particular case at the Washington Correction Center for Women, I'm trying to communicate with my fiance, trying to give her a home to go to, a family to blend in with, a place to belong, and a reason to live. I can't put that into her life, but I can help her. I can hold her hand and guide her on her journey. And she chooses me, and I choose to help her. And I choose her as she is. I'm not asking her to change. I would really not like her to continue using drugs. And she said she's quit while she's incarcerated. So that's good. And so when she gets out, she knows to seek resources and counseling if she needs it. And she knows she could talk to people. And I asked her about it. I said, would you still be doing it? And she says, well, I have you and we can work on this. And then I like to keep people busy because when they're busy, they're not going to go off and do drugs and get themselves in trouble. But I'm not forcing anything on her. I'm just listening. What are you going to do to keep this going? If she doesn't quit the drugs, if she doesn't quit the criminal ways, if she's not trying to make good with her life, the relationship will probably fall apart. But that's not what I'm asking her to do. I'm not asking her to change her mindset. It's just that she's was thrown around so much, she doesn't know what the stability is like. So show her, this is what your life can be like, but it takes some work. If you want to quit drugs, it takes work. If you want to be successful, it takes work. And that's success in love, success in making money, success in relationships with friends and family, success in starting a family. Success comes in many different ways, and I don't want her to think that the only way that she could feel comfortable is to commit a crime. That's the change that I make in my life. I don't want to force people to comply with what I want. I want them to see the options. Always give people two choices, at least. Don't just say, you have to do this and that's that. There's always a second choice, a second option. And as long as she knows that that's out there, we can do just fine. Now, I did stay married to an ex-con for 10 years, so I know it can work. And the things that she left me for weren't necessarily related to her crime spree. It was just typical human relationship. And so for me, it's easy to go by because I give these options to the people. We try to work out any issues. And if there's something that just overwhelms them, I can't fight it. I'm not going to chase a person down or force a person to do anything. When a woman says no, no means no, and it's as simple as that. And also, not always yes is a good option too, because if there's something she wants to do and I don't feel it's very safe or comfortable or legal, that yes is going to be a no for me. There's a lot that I have to deal with these type of relationships, but there are a lot of successful ones out there. I would rather have a relationship with somebody who's been incarcerated or who is incarcerated than to be in a relationship with somebody who or see somebody who's in a relationship with another formerly incarcerated or incarcerated person, because it's almost like they're liking to draw their life to a failure, and that's not guaranteed. If a person is going to get into a relationship, it's best that the person who has the criminal tendencies gets into a relationship with somebody who can help them build up and get away from that. Because look at Clyde. His brother brought him down, and then Clyde brought Bonnie down. When people, and I've seen a lot of ex-cons get together, that's where the correctional center comes in, where they have to show the folks the options. This is what you can do. If you two are going to have this relationship and it's going to be successful, you both need to have similar goals. If you want to get an education, if you want to start a business, if you want to work together in a warehouse or maybe drive in one of the Ubers, you need to focus on that. And you need to have somebody, maybe a parent or a sibling or a best friend, who can look in and monitor it. So there's no guarantee with relationships, but with incarcerated people, they just give up too easily. And Bonnie and Clyde were strongly in love with each other. And they both became criminals, but they were both willing to put that aside to live a comfortable life. It's just society wouldn't let them. We need to give people an opportunity. We don't need to stand in their way. And I do wish the Washington Department of Corrections would quit harassing my fiance and me. But when I first met her, I told her, they come after me and they don't want our relationship to work. And she said, they're not going to turn me away. I'm going to stick with this. And that was motivating for me. And she's been true to that. She's not breaking down. Despite all they throw at us, she's staying strong. That's what I want. It makes me happy. I'm not changing her. She's telling me what she wants, and she's fighting for it. And I'm going to support that. Had we supported Bonnie and Clyde, things would have been different. Maybe Clyde would have married Bonnie. And maybe they would have had a child that became a star in a band or a movie actor. Or maybe Bonnie and Clyde themselves would have come up and done lectures. Or maybe started a company of their own. It's something we're never going to know because we didn't pursue it. We didn't work with them. We immediately condemned them, or at least the law enforcement did. And then to glamorize them for the crimes that they committed? Nah, not good. Well, I hope you will talk with your friends and family and understand that a correctional center is supposed to correct deviant behavior, not assault people. And certainly not stop correspondence. We need to work with folks and understand them. And then we can help them become productive citizens. Isn't that what it's all about? Well, thanks for tuning in. And have yourself a marvelous day. And make super fantastic memories for tomorrow.